The first time I saw him, I wanted to punch him in the face. And somehow that feeling wasn't entirely wrong. He had that grin that could make you both hate him and crave his attention. The kind of grin that said, I own this town and maybe you too. I'd spent my entire life shrinking into corners, a ghost in my own story. But there he was, towering, confident, and devastatingly impossible to ignore. I didn't expect kindness from him. Not from Jackson Harper, the golden boy of Hollow Creek High, infamous for his pranks, sarcasm, and the effortless way he crushed people's spirits like brittle leaves. But when my family lost our house, and I found myself staring at the cold streets wondering how to survive the night, Jackson appeared. He didn't offer a lecture or a smirk. He offered a key. A small brass key, heavy in my palm, to a room in his old Victorian house perched on the hill, overlooking the town that had tormented me since I could remember. You can crash here, he said, like it was nothing, like giving away a room to a nobody was as easy as flipping a switch. And just like that, my life, which had felt like a slow-motion train wreck, began to shift. The room was modest, dust motes dancing in the late afternoon sunlight that slipped through the cracked blinds. It smelled faintly of old cedar and something else I couldn't place, something uniquely Jackson. It was intimidating and oddly comforting. A place that belonged to someone powerful yet inviting enough for a scared boy like me. At first, I kept my distance, wary of the man who could be both a nightmare and a savior. But living under the same roof meant proximity, and proximity was a dangerous thing when it came to Jackson Harper. I noticed the little things, how his jaw tightened when he was frustrated, how his eyes softened when he thought no one was watching, and the way he moved through his house like it was his kingdom. But every kingdom has its cracks, its secret rooms. Dinner was silent the first night. I sat at the edge of the table, poking at food that tasted better than I had in weeks. Jackson watched me like he was studying an equation he hadn't yet solved. Then he said it, casually, almost cruelly, "You're a lot braver than you look." I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. There was something in his voice, something behind the teasing tone that made my chest tighten and my stomach coil in ways I didn't understand. Days turned into weeks, and the walls I'd built around myself started to crumble. Jackson's teasing never fully stopped, but it evolved. It became a private language between us, a dance of words and glances that carried more meaning than either of us wanted to admit. There were nights when I'd lie awake, listening to the soft hum of his guitar, feeling the distance between us shrink, wondering if I'd imagined the shiver that ran down my spine when he passed by. One evening, a thunderstorm rattled the windows, the kind that made the whole house feel alive with electric tension. I was curled up in my corner of the room, trying to read a book I couldn't focus on. Jackson appeared, wet from the rain, hair plastered to his forehead, eyes bright and unguarded. He held out a towel, and for a second, I caught my breath, realizing how intimate the gesture was, how effortlessly he invaded my carefully maintained world. "You've been avoiding me," he said, voice low, playful, almost accusing. "I'm not avoiding you," I replied, though my words sounded like lies even to me. "Yeah, you are," he smirked, sitting down across from me, close enough that our knees nearly touched. The storm outside mirrored the heat rising between us, the tension thick and tangible. I wanted to deny the pull I felt, but denying Jackson Harper was like denying the sun. Impossible. It wasn't all confession and softness, though. Jackson had his demons, shadows that sometimes fell across the room like storm clouds. There were nights he'd snap, walk out without a word, leaving a cold echo that made me question whether the warmth I felt was real or just a fleeting illusion. And yet, even in those moments, the way he returned, unspoken apologies in his eyes, hinted at a vulnerability he couldn't fully articulate but was willing to share with me. School became a different battlefield. People whispered, stared, some with pity, others with curiosity. But for the first time in my life, I didn't care, because I had a room, a sanctuary, and a boy who complicated every rule I'd ever held about safety and love. One afternoon, Jackson caught me staring out the window, watching the golden leaves swirl along the empty streets of Hollow Creek. He leaned against the frame, arms crossed, and said, You're not going to survive in this town unless you fight. But maybe you don't have to fight alone. Something inside me stirred, a fragile hope wrapped in fear. I wanted to tell him everything, to trust him completely, but words felt inadequate. So I smiled, a small, tentative thing, and he smiled back. Not the grin that made me want to scream or run, but a real one, soft and sincere, the kind that made the storm outside seem irrelevant. Night after night, the room became a haven. We shared music, stories, jokes that no one else would understand. The air was thick with unspoken feelings, moments charged with electricity, glances that lingered too long, touches that brushed against skin in ways that left marks not visible to the eye but etched into memory. The town outside remained cruel, relentless, but within these walls, we were untouchable. And then came the night when everything shifted. I was lying on the bed, half asleep, when Jackson crawled into the room, drenched from the rain again. This time, he didn't offer a towel or a grin. He simply sat beside me, shoulders tense, eyes searching mine as if weighing a truth too heavy to speak aloud. "I've wanted to tell you," he murmured, voice barely audible over the storm, "that you're not just some lost kid I'm saving. You matter more than you know." The words hit harder than any punch, soft but undeniable. I reached out instinctively, fingers brushing his, and in that contact the world shifted. Suddenly, the fear, the pain, the cruelty of Hollow Creek didn't matter. Because for the first time, someone who had once been my tormentor, my enigma, had become my refuge, my home. From that night onward, everything subtly changed between us. The teasing didn't vanish, it softened, became a language of flirtation and warmth instead of a weapon. Jackson had a way of making me feel alive in ways I hadn't thought possible. He made me laugh until my ribs ached, challenged me to speak my mind, and somehow, without grand gestures, made the world outside less intimidating. We explored the town together, wandering through abandoned streets and hidden corners that seemed invisible to everyone else. Hollow Creek was still a cruel place, but with Jackson beside me, it felt smaller, less threatening. He showed me the old bookstore by the river where the owner never asked questions, the quiet park bench with the perfect view of the sunset, and the graffiti-covered wall where he said we could leave our marks. Each place became a memory stitched into the fabric of us, small pockets of intimacy and rebellion against a town that had tried to define us both. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in streaks of amber and rose, Jackson pulled me aside behind the bookstore. His hands were unsteady, which was rare for him, and for the first time, I saw hesitation shadow his usually confident eyes. "I don't want to mess this up," he whispered. "I've never," he faltered, then laughed softly. "Never felt this way about anyone before. You make me better, and I don't want to lose that." My heart thudded painfully, and all I could do was step closer, letting the words he couldn't finish hang between us. "Jackson," I murmured, voice trembling. "I feel the same way." The world seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, he leaned in and our lips met. Not a fiery, desperate kiss, but one that was careful, exploratory, and drenched in everything unspoken that had built up over weeks. It was both thrilling and terrifying, a promise and a confession wrapped in one tender motion. From that moment, everything intensified. Our nights were filled with whispered confessions and shared silences that spoke volumes. We learned the subtle language of each other's bodies, the brush of a hand across the back, the way a shoulder leaned in for comfort, the warmth of a shared blanket during stormy nights. Jackson wasn't just the boy who had once been a tormentor, he had become my anchor, my friend, and slowly my love. Even school became bearable. People noticed our closeness, whispered rumors, but we didn't care. Every glance, every subtle touch in the hallway was a rebellion, a declaration that we belonged to each other in a world that often tried to deny it. Jackson would sometimes wink or toss a playful comment that only I understood, and it sent shivers down my spine in the best way possible. But life has a way of testing happiness, even when it finally arrives. One night, a letter slid under my bedroom door, words scrawled in a handwriting I recognized instantly. It was a threat, a reminder of the cruelty that lingered outside our safe haven. My stomach dropped, fear and anxiety rising like a tidal wave. I wanted to hide, to run, to pretend it didn't matter, but Jackson found me pacing, clutching the letter. He took it gently from my hands, reading the words without flinching. Then he did something I didn't expect. He smiled, small and defiant, eyes glinting with fire. "Let them try," he said, voice steady. "You're not alone, and neither am I." In that moment, I realized that love wasn't just softness and laughter. It was strength, courage, and choosing someone every day, even when the world threatened to pull us apart. Jackson and I had found that in each other. As winter approached, the town seemed to grow quieter, almost reflective under a blanket of frost. We spent evenings in the room he'd given me, sharing old music, reading side by side, sometimes talking, sometimes sitting in comfortable silence. The room was no longer just a shelter, it was a symbol of transformation. A space where two broken souls found each other and started to heal. Then came the evening that would forever be etched in my memory. We climbed to the roof of the Victorian house, bundled in scarves and coats, staring at the twinkling lights of Hollow Creek beneath us. Jackson leaned close, shoulder brushing mine, and whispered, "You know, I never thought I'd want to stay in this town. But with you, maybe it's not so bad." I laughed softly, heart swelling, and leaned against him. "Maybe it isn't," I replied. We stayed there for hours, watching the stars, sharing our dreams, our fears, and our quiet hopes for the future. The tension that had once defined us, the fear, the teasing cruelty, all seemed like distant echoes. What remained was something gentle but powerful, a connection forged from pain, trust, and the slow, deliberate choice to care for someone completely. Eventually, we retreated indoors, hands brushing occasionally, lingering, neither wanting to break the magic of the night. Jackson grabbed a blanket, and we curled up together on my bed, safe in the warmth of each other's presence. Sleep came easy that night, untroubled, with the steady rhythm of his breathing as the last sound I heard. In the weeks and months that followed, our bond deepened. We navigated challenges, faced judgment and whispers, but inside that room, and in stolen moments around town, we discovered a world that belonged only to us. Hollow Creek might have been cruel, but it had also been the setting for something miraculous, a love that was tender, resilient, and quietly revolutionary in its intimacy. By the time spring arrived, flowers blooming and streets slowly shedding the cold, we were no longer two boys trying to survive the cruelty of a town. We were two hearts intertwined, proof that kindness could be found in unexpected places, and that love, even when it emerges from pain and fear, could grow strong enough to defy the world. Jackson and I often sat on the porch, watching the sunset, laughing about old pranks, sharing plans, or simply enjoying the silence. And every time I looked at him, I remembered that first day, the scorn, the teasing, the impossible grin, and marveled at how far we'd come. From fear and pain to laughter, trust, and love, everything had changed. And in the soft glow of our room, amidst the gentle chaos of a small American town, we had found home, not in the walls, not in the streets, but in each other. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.